"Stop the show." The words crackled through the air, slicing through the deafening roar of jet engines. A collective gasp rippled across the sprawling crowd at the SkySpectra air show. Held under a blazing June sky in 2025, thousands of heads swiveled toward the source of the interruption, an elderly woman standing alone near the runway's edge. Her frail figure silhouetted against the shimmering tarmac. Her faded blue dress fluttered in the warm breeze, and her silver hair, loosely tied in a bun, caught the sunlight like a halo. In her gnarled hands, she clutched a small, worn photograph, its edges frayed from years of touch. But the crowd didn't see her quiet dignity. Instead, whispers of mockery erupted like wildfire. "Who's that old lady?" A young man in a neon cap sneered, nudging his friend. It's like she wandered in from a farm. Laughter burst from their group, sharp and cutting, drawing amused glances from nearby families. A woman in a sleek leather jacket, scrolling through her phone, muttered, "She doesn't belong here. This is for people who actually get it." The jeers grew louder, bolder, as a cluster of teenagers joined in. "Hey, Grandma, go back to your rocking chair," one shouted, prompting a wave of chuckles. To them, Agnes, though they didn't know her name, was an oddity, a relic out of place in this high-octane world of sleek jets and cutting-edge tech. The SkySpectra air show was a dazzling spectacle, drawing aviation enthusiasts, influencers, and families from across the country. The air buzzed with anticipation as the scent of jet fuel mingled with the aroma of popcorn and sunscreen. Children waved tiny American flags, their faces painted with stars, while influencers angled their cameras for the perfect shot of the gleaming aircraft lined up like modern-day dragons. Massive screens broadcasted close-ups of the star attraction, the B-2 stealth bomber, its angular, obsidian black form radiating power and mystery. The crowd was primed for a show of speed and precision. It's not for an elderly woman in a threadbare dress stealing the spotlight. Agnes stood unmoved, her pale blue eyes fixed on the B-2 with an intensity that seemed to pierce through time. Taunts washed over her like distant waves, barely registering. Her fingers traced the photograph in her hands, a black and white image of a young woman in a pilot's uniform, standing tall beside a propeller plane, her smile defiant and free. To the crowd, Agnes was a nobody, a curious intruder. But she wasn't there by chance. She carried a story woven into the very fabric of aviation history. A story that would soon turn their laughter into awe and their jeers into tears. The announcer's voice boomed over the speakers, hyping the crowd for the B-2's upcoming demo. "Get ready for Captain Ryan Mitchell, one of the finest pilots in the Air Force, to show you what this beast can do." The audience roared, but a few still tossed barbs at Agnes. "She's ruining the vibe," a man grumbled, adjusting his sunglasses. Yet, as the bomber's engines began to hum, a subtle shift occurred. Agnes's stillness, her unwavering focus, seemed to draw a faint ripple of curiosity. A young girl, clutching her father's hand, whispered, "Daddy, why is she standing there all alone?" Her father shrugged, but his eyes lingered on Agnes, sensing something the mockers missed: a quiet strength, a purpose that defied their scorn. The SkySpectra air show was a sensory overload, a celebration of speed and innovation. Fighter jets screamed overhead, leaving white trails in the azure sky, while drones danced in synchronized patterns, their lights flashing like fireflies. Children waved glow-in-the-dark plane models, their faces painted with stars, as parents snapped photos. Food trucks lined the field, dishing out sizzling hot dogs and icy slushies, their neon signs adding to the festive chaos. Influencers in designer sunglasses angled for the perfect shot, their followers flooding X with hashtags like #SkySpectra225. Amid this whirlwind, Agnes stood out like a faded photograph in a digital gallery. Her simple blue dress, patched it, the hem, and her straw hat slightly askew, drew immediate attention, and not the kind sort. A group of teenagers, their phones perpetually raised, zeroed in on her. "Yo, check out this grandma." One boy, his hair dyed electric blue, called out, zooming in on Agnes's weathered hands clutching the photograph. "What's she holding? Her grocery list?" His friends howled, filming her as if she were a sideshow. Their laughter drew others, like moths to a flame. A man in a polo shirt, sipping a craft beer, leaned toward his buddy. "This ain't a knitting convention." His friend chuckled, shaking his head. "Bet she thinks. That bomber's a crop duster." Nearby, a woman in a sleek leather jacket, her nails painted crimson, scrolled through her phone, barely glancing up. "She's ruining the aesthetic," she muttered to her friend, who nodded. "Seriously? Why is she even here? She probably doesn't know a B-2 from a biplane." Their words carried, sharp as the jets overhead, but Agnes didn't flinch. Her gaze remained locked on the stealth bomber, its sleek lines reflecting the sun like a polished obsidian blade. Her lips moved slightly as if whispering to someone long gone, her fingers tracing the photograph's Ageza, a young woman in a pilot's uniform. Her smile bold and fearless, standing beside a plane from another era. The mockery grew bolder. A middle-aged couple, decked out in matching SkySpectra t-shirts, pointed at Agnes. "Maybe she's here for the free food," the woman said, smirking. Her husband laughed, loud enough for others to join in. A young girl, no older than 10, tugged at her father's sleeve, her brow furrowed. "Why are they being mean to her, Daddy?" she asked, her voice drowned out by the crowd's chatter. Her father, distracted by his phone, shrugged. "She's just in the way, sweetie." But the girl kept watching Agnes, sensing something the others missed. Quiet strength. A purpose that stood firm against the tide of ridicule. Agnes's stillness only fueled the crowd's taunts. A group of college students, wearing fraternity caps, started a chant, "Go home, Grandma! Go home, Grandma!" It caught on, a cruel rhythm that spread through the nearby rows. An older man, his face weathered like Agnes's, frowned, but said nothing. Uncomfortable with the mob mentality, but hesitant to intervene. Meanwhile, the announcer's voice boomed, hyping the crowd for the B-2 demo. "Get ready for Captain Ryan Mitchell to light up the skies." The cheers drowned out the jeers for a moment, but the teenagers kept filming, their comments growing harsher. "This is going viral," one said, grinning. "Old lady crashes airshow pic fail." Yet Agnes remained a rock in the storm. Her eyes, bright with memories, never wavered from the bomber. The photograph in her hands was her anchor, a tether to a life the crowd couldn't imagine. She wasn't here by accident. She had come to fulfill a promise, one tied to the skies, and a love that had spanned decades. The crowd's laughter was noise, nothing more. Her heart beat with the rhythm of propellers long silenced, and her mind replayed flights over stormy seas, a story they would soon learn, one that would turn their mockery to shame. Captain Ryan Mitchell, a seasoned Air Force pilot with a chiseled jaw and steady hands, climbed into the B-2 stealth bomber's cockpit, the crowd's cheers vibrating through his flight suit. The bomber, a $2 billion marvel of engineering, was his Domena 172-foot-wide flying wing designed to slip through enemy radar like a shadow. Its matte black skin absorbed the sunlight, and its engines, now warming up, emitted a low, guttural hum that shook the tarmac. Mitchell adjusted his helmet, his fingers dancing over the cockpit's digital displays, checking altitude sensors, stealth systems, and fuel levels. The control stick felt like an extension of his body, honed by years of high-stakes missions. Today's demo was routine low-altitude pass, a mock bombing run, and a steep climb to thrill the crowd, but Mitchell thrived on precision. As the B-2 began to taxi, its wheels rumbling against the runway, Mitchell's eyes scanned the horizon, a habit from covert operations over hostile skies. But something closer caught his attention, a lone figure near the runway's edge. Agnes stood there, her frail form dwarfed by the bomber's massive silhouette. Her blue dress and straw hat seemed relics from another era, yet her posture was striking, upright, unwavering, like a sentinel. Crowd's jeers reached Mitchell's ears through the open channel to ground control. "What's with the old lady?" Technician chuckled over the radio. Mitchell didn't respond. His gaze lingered on Agnes, her eyes locked on the B-2 with an intensity that felt familiar. He'd met veterans before, grizzled pilots with stories of dogfights and daring landings. Agnes's stance reminded him of them, but there was more. Her hands clutched a photograph, and though he couldn't see it clearly, the way she held it like a talisman stirred something deep. Was she a widow of an airman? A retired engineer? Or something else entirely? The crowd's mockery grew. Louder, a chant of "Go home, Grandma," echoing. Mitchell's jaw tightened. He'd seen mobs turn on outsiders before, and it never sat right. But stopping a demo mid-sequence? Unheard of. It could delay the schedule, frustrate the crowd, and raise eyebrows among his superiors. The announcer's voice boomed, "Get ready for the B-2 to take flight." The crowd roared, but Mitchell's hands hesitated on the throttle. Ground control buzzed in his ear. "Captain, you're clear for rollout." "Everything okay?" He didn't answer. His mind raced, weighing protocol against instinct. Agnes's stillness was a puzzle he couldn't ignore. He glanced at the cockpit side monitor, zooming in on her. Her eyes, bright and unyielding, seemed to see through the bomber, as if it held memories only she understood. The photograph in her hands was that a plane in the image? Pilot, captain, confirmed status, ground control pressed. Mitchell exhaled, his decision made. He raised his hand, signaling a halt. The B-2's engines powered down, their hum fading to a whine. The crowd fell silent, confusion rippling through the stands. "What's going on?" a man muttered, lowering his binoculars. The announcer, caught off guard, stammered, Folks, we're experiencing a brief pause. Stay tuned." Whispers. "Spread technical issue. Security threat." The teenagers stopped chanting, their phones still raised, now filming the jets. Unexpected stop. Mitchell unstrapped himself, opened the cockpit hatch, and climbed down the ladder, his boots hitting the tarmac with purpose. The crowd watched, stunned, as he strode toward Agnes, his flight suit glinting in the sun. Ground crew exchanged baffled glances, and the announcer's voice faltered. Mitchell's heart pounded not from nerves, but from a gut feeling that this moment mattered. He reached Agnes, towering over her frail frame, and knelt to meet her eyes. The crowd leaned forward, a sea of faces caught between curiosity and impatience. "Ma'am," he said, his voice steady but soft, "may I ask your name?" Agnes looked at him, her gaze clear as a summer sky. "Agnes Thornton," she replied, her voice ringing with quiet strength. Murmurs swept through the crowd. That name, why did it tug at their memories? Captain Mitchell's eyes widened, a spark of recognition igniting. "The Agnes Thornton?" he asked, his voice thick with awe. He stood, signaling the announcer to patch him into the sound system. The massive speakers crackled, and his words boomed across the field. "Ladies and gentlemen, you're standing in the presence of a legend." The crowd fell silent, their mockery replaced by curiosity. The teenagers lowered their phones, the woman in the leather jacket paused her scrolling, and even the college student's chant fizzled out. Mitchell's voice carried a weight that demanded attention. He began to unravel a story that would transform the air show into something unforgettable. "Agnes Thornton," he said, glancing at her with reverence, "was a women Air Force Service PilotsWASP during World War II. At a time when women were rarely seen in cockpits, she flew some of the most dangerous missions of the war." He paused, letting the words sink in. The crowd leaned forward, hanging on every syllable. At 22, Agnes was ferrying B-17 Flying Fortresses and P-51 Mustangs across the Atlantic, dodging storms and enemy fire to deliver planes to our troops in Europe. She flew solo, navigating by stars and sheer grit, with no weapons to defend herself. Each flight was a gamble. Hundreds of WASPs never made it back. But Agnes did, again and again, helping win the war. He gestured to the photograph in her hands, now visible to those closest to her. That's her, in 1943, standing beside. AB-17, she flew from Maine to England, a journey that took her through icing conditions in enemy territory. She wasn't just a pilot. She was a pioneer, breaking barriers for women in aviation. The crowd gasped, shame creeping into their faces. The photograph, once mocked as a grocery list, was now a relic of courage, showing a young Agnes. In a leather flight jacket, her smile defiant, her eyes alight with the thrill of flight. Mitchell's voice softened. "Agnes is here today to honor a promise to her late husband, James Thornton, an engineer who helped design the very B-2 stealth bomber you see behind me. They met during the war, when James was a mechanic servicing her planes. Their love was forged in the skies, and he made her promise to one day see the B-2 fly a machine he poured his heart into. Mitchell turned to Agnes, his eyes glistening. "Ma'am, you're not just a spectator. You're the heart of this air show." The crowd's mood shifted like a tide. The teenagers, their faces flushed with guilt, pocketed their phones. Woman in the leather jacket dabbed tears, her designer sunglasses fogging up. A man in the polo shirt who'd called Agnes a crop duster stared at the ground, his beer forgotten. The young girl who'd questioned the mockery tugged her father's sleeve, whispering, "She's a hero, Daddy." Her father nodded, his own eyes wet. The college students, once chanting cruelly, exchanged awkward glances, their bravado gone. An older man, a veteran himself, removed his cap in respect. His weathered face etched with pride, Mitchell knelt again, taking Agnes's hand. "Ma'am," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "would you do us the honor of joining me?" In the cockpit, Agnes looked at him, her eyes bright with memories of stormy skies and roaring engines. She nodded, a small smile breaking through. The crowd erupted in applause, a wave of cheers that drowned out the earlier jeers. As Mitchell helped her toward the B-2, the announcer, now composed, added, "Let's give it up for Agnes Thornton, a true American hero." The cheers grew louder, echoing across the field, as influencers scrambled to capture the moment, their posts already flooding X with hashtag Agnes Thornton. The crowd erupted in a thunderous roar as Agnes, with Captain Mitchell's gentle support, climbed the ladder to the B-2 stealth bomber's cockpit. Her frail hands gripped the rungs, but her steps were steady, driven by a spark that hadn't dimmed in decades. The massive jet loomed like a dark, futuristic beast, its sleek lines a far cry from the propeller planes she'd once flown. Yet, as she settled into the co-pilot's seat, the cockpit felt like home. The digital displays glowed, a stark contrast to the analog dials of her WASP days, but the hum of the engines stirred memories of stormy skies and daring flights. Her fingers brushed the control stick, trembling slightly, and for a moment, she was 22 again, navigating a B-17 through enemy territory, her heart racing with the thrill of flight. Mitchell, seated beside her, adjusted his headset and smiled. "Ready, ma'am?" he asked, his voice warm with respect. Agnes nodded, her eyes bright with a mix of nostalgia and fulfillment. "For James," she whispered, clutching the photograph of her younger self, now tucked into her dress pocket. The ground crew signaled clearance, and the B-2's engines roared to life, vibrating through the cockpit. The crowd, still on their feet, watched in awe as the jet taxied, its dark form gliding like a shadow. The announcer, now fully invested, boomed, "This flight is dedicated to Agnes Thornton, a hero of the skies." Cheers echoed, a wave of admiration replacing the earlier mockery, as the B-2 lifted off. Slicing through the azure sky, the announcer shared more of Agnes's story. She flew over 50 missions during the war, delivering planes that turned the tide of battle. She faced sexism, storms, and mechanical failures, but never backed down. Spectators listened, wrapped many wiping tears. The young girl who'd questioned the crowd's cruelty clutched her father's hand, her face glowing with pride. "She's like a superhero," she whispered. Her father, now fully attentive, nodded, his own eyes wet. The woman in the leather jacket, her phone forgotten, stood clapping, her designer sunglasses fogged with tears. The man in the polo shirt, who'd mocked Agnes as a crop duster, hung his head, whispering to his friend, "We were so wrong." The B-2 soared, executing a low pass that sent a sonic ripple through the crowd. Inside the cockpit, Agnes gazed out, the world blurring below. She saw not just the field, but the skies of 1943, icy clouds over the Atlantic, the glow of stars guiding her home. She thought of James, his grease-stained hands fixing her planes, his quiet promise that one day they'd see a bomber like this fly together. "We did it, love," she murmured, her voice breaking. Catching her words, saluted her, silently, his respect deepening with every moment. When the jet landed, the crowd's ovation shook the stands. Mitchell helped Agnes down, and as her feet touched the tarmac, the applause grew deafening. The teenagers, their faces flushed with guilt, approached hesitantly. The boy with electric blue hair spoke first, his voice shaky. "We're so sorry. Ma'am, we didn't know." Agnes smiled, her eyes kind. "Never judge a book by its cover, kids," she said, patting his shoulder. The group nodded, some tearing up, their phones now capturing selfies with her. Their ex-posts shifting from mockery to admiration. The college students, once chanting, "Go home, Grandma," formed a line to shake her hand. Their bravado replaced by humility. An older man, a veteran with a silver star pinned to his cap, saluted her, his voice thick. "You made us proud, ma'am." Agnes returned the salute, her hand steady. Influencers, sensing a viral moment, flooded X with hashtag Agnes Thornton there. Videos racking up millions of views. By evening, news outlets picked up the story, hailing Agnes as a forgotten hero rediscovered. Social media buzzed with tributes, from aviation enthusiasts to young girls inspired to pursue piloting. As Agnes left the air show, escorted by Mitchell and event organizers, she paused to look skyward, the fading sun painting the clouds gold. She clutched her photograph, whispering, "We did it, love." The crowd parted for her, their cheers a final tribute. The SkySpectra air show became more than a display of machines. It was a celebration of courage, a reminder that heroes can hide in the humblest places. Agnes's story, now etched in history, soared higher than any jet, inspiring a world to look beyond appearances and honor the unsung.